I'm going to tell you about how a arguably fake map from 500 years ago has fed the YouTube conspiracy theory algorithm.
Whoa.
This goes all the way to the top. Hey everybody, welcome to 500 Open Tabs. I'm Hannah Hillam.
And I'm Kaveh Taherian. Welcome back to the show. How you been, Hannah?
You know, I'm alive, you know? How about you?
Are you?
Sort of.
You were kind of seeming a bit ghastly today. I was wondering if it was the ghost of Hannah Hillam coming back to haunt the
That's
podcast.
my alter ego.
Yes.
Hannah Hillam.
That's my favorite.
Writes
Hannah Hillam.
It sounds more Middle Eastern than your name.
It's true.
Have we told everybody about that? How she introduced me at the book signing as Hannah Hillam?
Hannah Hillam. And I couldn't. It was Hannah Hillam, and then at another one, you were Hannah Hillman.
Yeah, and you just...
and I started cheering from the audience and saying,
Hillman! There's a picture.
I kept saying it every time someone clapped.
Someone got a photo of me glaring at you right after you said that, and I'm like, I look angry. Yeah. Hillman,
Hillam.
I've been called Hannah Hillman my entire life.
But have you been cheered as Hannah
No.
Hillman from an audience member?
No.
So jot that down. You're welcome.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anyway, well, welcome back to the show. I think today is going to be a bit intense. We've got a lot. I've got my second part of my tab, and from when you've been texting me back and forth, it sounds like your tab's going to be quite large and in charge.
I don't want to be
not
dramatic, but this almost destroyed me.
Listen,
it's fine. It's my
getting your pants on in the morning is you're like, this almost destroyed
no,
me.
because
So
I don't take my
forgive
pants
me if
off.
I'm not that.
I sleep in the pants I wore the day before because I'm garbage, like Sid from Toy Story. I remember that I watched that and I was like, he's sleeping in his jeans. And then like fast forward to college and I straight up just slept in my jeans every night like a psychopath.
Yeah, that is psychopathic behavior to sleep in your jeans.
Because I just don't.
Do you exercise in jeans? Who does that? What kind of monster wears jeans to sleep?
I don't wear jeans to sleep anymore. I have made my wardrobe so flexible that I can sleep and wear everything interchangeably.
And shower in them. It's perfect. Yeah. Hannah Hillam,
point
a perfect story of rehabilitation in the modern age.
My daughter
jeans
said,
to sleep, jeans to the shower, jeans to the exercise room, the gym. That's what I was trying to say.
The exercise room. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter even asked me, do adults wear pajamas? And I was like, this was the other day because, yeah. And I was like, yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Anyway,
all right, awesome.
It's going to be intense, but it'll be fun.
Yeah, I feel like this one's going to be a very loaded episode. We're going to have quite a lot to cover. So why don't we dispense with the discussion of your jeans to sleep and actually get into the proper discussion? Yes, so just so you guys know, so you have time to anticipate. We're going to be doing a little break for the holidays, quote unquote, which is really, for Christmas and New Year's, and then we'll be back. So we're almost at the end of season 1. I will say this. I've been talking to you about this all week. We'll tell the audience this before we get into it. But to me, I feel like we're at the end of like having finished a book.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, there's only 2 episodes left. There's only 1 episode left.
Yep.
And it's like that feeling of like only 1 page left to draw, only 2 pages left to draw. And then you sit back and look at this giant mid podcast of an entire season.
Yes.
And you look at it on your wall and you're like, that was fine.
He's like acting like this, but we've all talked about how proud we are. Okay, what do you have?
Anyway,
more about the Seed Boys and Stalin, right? Seed Boys and Stalin.
Seed Boys sounds like a terrible like the Seed Posse. It's like Leonardo DiCaprio and his friends in the early 90s, like all his actors. If you have not listened to last week's episode, I suggest you go do so now.
Yeah, because
this is part 2. And if you haven't heard part 1, you'll have no idea what's going on. You're going to be like, oh, Russia? What's that? Never heard of it. But
never heard of her.
Just a quick recap. Never heard of her. First time. Quick recap. Nikolai Vavilov, a.k.a. Nikolai the Science Guy, was a Russian botanist who came of age when genetics was first being discussed as a scientific concept. He set out on the noble quest of using crop science to prevent famine, which led him to collecting thousands of seeds from around the world to study at the Academy of Agricultural Sciences, where he was the director. There, he met agronomist Trofim Lysenko, who sucked balls at research but used communist rhetoric to explain away that actually math is just, quote, a bourgeois metaphysical science developed in Western capitalist countries for reactionary eugenics, racism, and other purposes. gross.
He also didn't wear shoes, if I remember correctly.
Correct. Also barefoot. He was the Steve Jobs of hack science. Naturally, this Twitter edgelord gained popularity within the party when the love of Hannah Hallam's life.
Get it right.
Hannah Hallam's life. The love of Hannah Hallam's life, Joseph the Stallion, saw Lysenko speak about how everything is everyone else's fault and not his own.
Yeah. Narcissist.
And then old Joey Jojo Jr. Shavadu was smitten, and he put Lysenko in charge of Soviet agriculture.
Okay, so if I understood you correctly, Joseph Stalin was like, this guy's awesome. You're in charge of agriculture.
Pretty much.
Cool.
Yeah, that's basically where we left off last week, which I'm sure you've forgotten about completely, but that's why I wanted to recap you.
Yeah, not going to lie about that.
Fair enough. I understand. So basically, as soon as he's promoted to be Mr. Manager, Lysenko promises Stalin. He's like, wow, I'm Mr. Manager. So as soon as he becomes manager, Lysenko promises Stalin new strains of kick-ass crops that will make women laugh at your jokes and get your dad to tell you he's proud of you.
Oh, no. I don't think so.
Yeah, that's what he said. Follow the science, Hannah. Better yet, they could be produced within 3 years, which was much quicker than the 12 years that libcuck Vavilov promised.
Coming in hot. Libcuck. Okay. Wait, so 3 years instead of 12 years? That's actually amazing.
Yeah, totally going to work too, obviously.
Definitely.
Facts. Yeah. By the way, this is literally a central point of the plot of Idiocracy, which I assume you've not seen. No, it's like, Brondo, it's got what plants crave, because the Brondo Corporation takes over like all agriculture in the United States, and it's basically Gatorade. So then they convince like the entire, like everybody in the country that electrolytes are what plants need, and then they start putting like Brondo on the plants, and then there's a drought and everything. It's basically what happens in Soviet Russia around this time.
Honestly.
It's certainly what happened specifically here. I mean, they're not putting literal Gatorade, but it's like, this guy does not understand the science, and he's like, no, this is what we got to do for these crops, and it's going to be great. And Stalin's just like, cool. That's definitely like not going to kill millions of people. Thumbs up.
When you put non-experts in charge of entire departments of the government, that's what happens.
Yeah, it's a bit questionable. Anyway, this begins what would henceforth be known as the era of Lysenkoism. So they even named this period after him in terms of science. I should say science in quotes. Like McCarthyism or like all these other isms at the end of it.
I like that one. McCarthyism is one of my favorite isms.
Is it?
I used to be really, I got super.
You used to be virulently anti-communist, and you wanted to blackball everybody from getting any work.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
I was like,
yes.
I was like blacklisting whatever her name was. What's her name? One of those actresses.
I don't know.
Just, roll me down a hill into the bog. Continue.
Toss me into the wood chipper. Yeah. So
I always imagine the sound of a body in a wood chipper.
Oh yeah, me too. Anyway, so now that Lysenko's the big dog, what's going on with Nikolai from Riverside? He was so fixated on his anti-famine plan. You like that one?
Sure, yeah.
I'm just slipping him in there for you real quick.
It's not confusing me at all.
Yeah. No, Nikolai the science guy.
That's right.
The main seed guy. The main guy who started the whole seed
boy.
Got it. Okay. Yes. The seed boy. The main seed boy, exactly. He was so fixated on his anti-famine plan that he was completely asleep at the wheel as internal politics and power determined who would be listened to in the new Soviet state. He was kind of naive, unfortunately. He thought that the science alone would save him. This is classic trope of science-based people.
That's
They're just
very cute.
Yeah, it's adorable. He didn't go to any mixers. He wasn't listing his accomplishments on LinkedIn and saying how grateful he was to be struggling because it made him hustle harder. None of that. He just kept going about his nerd seed gathering. He didn't do the networking like he should have been.
Shame.
And it's also important to remember that initially, Nikolai was on board with Lysenko's harebrained ideas. He was sort of like, I don't know if you remember when we talked about FDR with like the bat bombs.
Yeah, that's right. He was like, this sounds good.
He was just, it wasn't even necessarily that he's like, this sounds good. He was like, the stakes here are so high that we need to try everything and anything. And you basically just do what you can and then see if there's a reason. He was a ultimate yes and. He was like, let's try it. we'll take it to its logical conclusion. If it works, it works. And if it doesn't, no harm, no foul. Like, at least we tried every avenue that was possible.
Right.
And remember, his entire life has been dedicated to this specific, a very noble idea of like, he wants to end famine. He wants to figure out ways to get crops to crossbreed and like make these super crops that can make it easier to grow under whatever conditions so that people wouldn't starve to death. Like, that's what he's driven by.
Exactly. And that can sometimes lead to being blind to literally anything else or any criticism or any,
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because you and I talk about this where it's like part of creativity works that way, where you're just like, you can't say no. You really have to just be like, I don't know, maybe.
Let's do
and then if you open your up to that possibility, something might come out of it. It might not be the main thing, but something might come from it that allows you to open another path.
But also part of creativity is letting go of things that don't work, which
also that too
is hard to learn, very hard to learn.
So he's sort of taking the best of science and the best of creative thought, I think. But unfortunately, in this case, he allowed Lysenko to run a little bit wild. And after more and more of Lysenko's data regarding vernalization came back, Nikolai starts looking at it and he's like, this is, I don't know about this, you guys. This looks very sus, as the kids would say today.
Yeah,
and
or in 2012.
Or in 2012.
Sorry, I should say more 2016.
2016. It's a throwback, okay? It's a vintage expression.
Oh.
So he asks one of his students to replicate Lysenko's results based on what he had provided, which obviously they could not because, after all, it was, I believe the scientific term for this is dog shit.
Yes. That term. Accurate.
Yeah.
That's wow. So that it couldn't be reproduced because
could not be reproduced because it was a lie. At best, you could say that it was like driven by bad science. It's hard to say how much of it was literally him just lying versus him just sort of reaffirming and believing his own mania.
That's the thing. Like if you your own biases, there's little like things you can do, like tweaks and bits and pieces here that you can change without too much of a realization of it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So I should be careful to say I can't say definitively that he was necessarily lying, but his results were not correct. They were not replicable. So Nikolai was like, okay, I guess like Lysenko and I were enemies now, and he puts him on blast.
Oh dang.
But like not in a dramatic way. He's still a humble botanist. He would just calmly lay out all the data and be like, don't shoot the messenger, bro. This is what the science says. And don't forget, at this point, he's like one of the most famous scientists in the world. So he kind of doesn't need, big dogs don't need to bark.
Right.
Kind of thing, where he's just like, I've worked for 40 years at this. I have a huge reputation. I don't need to be going out of my way to like get all crazy and like, beat this guy down. I'm here because I've followed the science, and therefore it's going to save me in the end.
Oh.
And of course, this is a perfect way to deal with a government often being run by psychopaths, is by undermining their intelligence, because that's certainly not something they're deeply insecure about.
Yeah, no. No. That's exactly. They'll listen. If you just talk about it and tell them the truth, they'll listen, right?
They're just like, oh, you know what? I never thought about that way. Thank you for caring enough to point it out. Yeah. So basically, right off the bat, Nikolai straight up banned from any more travels abroad for his seed collection.
Oh, no.
And his seed collection had grown considerably.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh.
Do that.
Oh.
I know. It took you a second.
It took me a minute.
There we go. That was the response I was waiting for. So at this point, he had about 187,000 seeds, with roughly 40,000 of them being field crops that were in the collection.
Wow.
Which is unbelievable at this point.
It's reminding me of like Pokemon, like trading Pokemon cards at recess. Be like,
this is big time.
I'll give you corn, genetically modified corn for that bean sprout over there.
He is the Ash of seed collection.
Except way sadder.
Yeah, honestly, that would be really fun to draw Lysenko in the hat and like the vest and like the gloves.
It has like a hammer and sickle on it instead of the little axe.
Yeah. Well, he's not communist. He's just sort of like whatever. He's a neutral guy here at this point. He's like whatever helps people get fed.
That's nice.
Yeah, I think what would his Pikachu be is the real question. I don't know.
What's his
Maybe
favorite
it would just
crop?
be literally Pikachu. I think, I don't know, potatoes or corn.
It'd be a
one
potato.
of the simple ones, probably. A
And
potato
he would have
Pikachu.
just drawn a face on it, like, and in Russia,
Potato
this is how
chew
our
or
toys
something.
are. Potato chew. Just draws a Pikachu face on a potato and throws it at people. Be like, go Pikachu.
So he gets banned, and Lysenko's he's basically like, you can't gather seeds anymore until you finish the ones we have at home. Completely missing the point of everything.
Right.
He just like doesn't even understand. Furthermore, Lysenko warned him and his student, quote, when their erroneous data were swept away, those who failed to understand their implications would also be swept away.
Oh, scary.
So yeah, this is where it starts to get scary.
Also insane.
And as
a true madman.
very much so. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, good.
And as the years went by, Lysenko, with Stalin's blessing, continued to purge his dissenters, having them fired or thrown into prison if they did not swear allegiance to the vision of Lysenkoism.
Scary. Oh, shit.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much you remember your world history or Russian history, but like this is, 1930s into the 40s where like a lot of this happens.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're trying to consolidate, their ideology into one streamlined thing.
Yeah.
And they were our allies.
Uh,
That's the funniest part about all of it. I mean, it makes sense that they were, but
yeah.
Yeah.
And also, for all intents and purposes, he removes any mention of Mendelian genetics from biology textbooks at every level, from grade school on through university.
Whoa.
So basically now they're teaching the kids just like non-scientific nonsense.
This is weird to me because, I mean, not weird, but like as you see in like the Cold War, Russia was way into science, like at mostly accurate science. I think like they had they like, prided themselves with having these like intelligent like scientists and engineers.
I'm gonna get into that too.
Cool.
Actually, I'll sort of explain why that is.
Where the flip happened, because I'm curious.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Because remember, at this point, I should reiterate, we covered this in part 1, but essentially Lysenko is like, yeah, no, if you just like train your crop to be strong and whatever, the next generation, it'll immediately inherit those traits. So he essentially like rejected the idea of genetics, that it was somehow like on the cellular level,
Pump it full of roids or something, get it all beefy.
Not just that, but like, remember it because he was essentially taking communist and Soviet ideology and like applying it to the sciences. Because if somehow, you could take crops on that level and then feed the crops better and put it into like whatever different condition, within a generation, everything would flourish. And that's essentially what Stalin's vision was for all of Russia at that point. Anyway, certainly within that period of like whatever time, 5 to 10 years, where he was like, we're going to make this happen. So they needed everybody to get on board with that vision as fast as possible in their attempt to, I mean, we called it kind of modernization, but the idea is like, in the crazy image of what Stalin thought he was going to make, like a Russian super race of people, whatever. Communism is the reason why they're able to do it, not because of genetics. So that's how communism was going to spread across the entire world. And he basically implements that into science, quote unquote, science. So also, not to mention, having a total hack in charge of agriculture means that crops kept not doing great and everyone keeps dying.
Yeah.
And of course, there's a lot of outright murdering too, but the bad crops isn't really helping.
You can't murder someone with crops. It's more of a slow. You could, but it's more slow.
With bad crops, yeah. And then people aren't eating and they're dying and they're starving to death, and then stuff's getting stolen by soldiers and blah, blah, blah.
Is this the time when we see photos of like the bread lines and stuff like in Russia where literally everyone's starving and they're just waiting for bread?
I don't know, to be honest with you. It sounds like this happened a couple times.
I think this happened more than once.
Multiple times. I don't know specifically when the bread lines were happening.
They may have been earlier.
I think the big famous Russian famine was in the early 1930s. That was like in the Ukraine.
Oh, okay.
That might be part of what it was. But again, don't quote me. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know. All that sort of blends together in terms of when these images that I've seen. I'm not sure. I couldn't date it. But basically, Lysenko continues being like, no, bro, this isn't my fault. We just haven't purged enough Western science from the Soviet Union. And the beef between Nikolai and Lysenko escalates even more. Now they're straight up having like rap battles, but like not the fun Drake, Kendrick Lamar ones of today. It's more like the Biggie, Tupac ones from the 90s.
Everyone's going to end up dead at some point.
Yeah, basically. Oosh. Yes. In one instance, Lysenko called Nikolai in for a report regarding peas and lentils.
East Coast, West Coast seed rap battles.
Make money.
Make scenes.
Hit him up. I'm trying to not quote that entire song right now because it's extremely inappropriate.
Yeah.
Anyway, when Nikolai told them, he basically goes in and Nikolai tells him that his team hadn't yet figured out how to distinguish a pea from a lentil through protein analysis, right?
Okay.
And Lysenko's like, quote, I suppose anyone who tries them on their tongue can tell a lentil from a pea, to which Nikolai responds, comrade, we are unable to distinguish them chemically.
Oh, he's just
to which Lysenko responds, yeah, what's the point of being able to distinguish them chemically if you can just try them on your tongue?
Oh.
And then everybody was like, oh, shit!
He wins!
It's like, oh, fuck! He went there! Everyone's just like cheer. They're like high-fiving.
Stalin's like, yeah!
Yeah, woo!
Yep.
Yeah, it's going crazy. Everyone's like, they're getting crazy.
Yep.
They're cheering.
Dumping Gatorade on each other. That's sports. Never mind.
Yeah.
I got rap and sports mixed up.
Some could say that rap battles are a sport.
Yeah.
But, Nikolai, he's sort of unfazed. He's like, I don't know what these idiots are talking. He's like, what? That doesn't even make sense. That's not how this works. That's not how science works. But, of course, this pisses off Lysenko more. And he's just like, idiot, why isn't this nerd bothered by me? Ugh!
I hate Lysenko. It's such a...
Yep. And he keeps trying to undermine Nikolai's public reputation over and over again by calling these conferences and stacking the crowd with his cronies like it was a cable news, like town hall event of some sort. He just keeps doing it. And like there's more and more of his supporters and there's less and less scientists. And I shouldn't say necessarily because there were scientists who didn't support Nikolai. It's just more like it's sort of the tide turned.
Right.
And it became very obvious that like it was going to be dangerous to be on the other side of this. Fall in line. And eventually the writing's on the wall and Nikolai knew what was coming.
Oh.
And so he told his most loyal supporters to do what they could to survive, including denouncing him if it meant that they would stay alive.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's nice.
He's just sort of like, yeah, he's just like, it doesn't matter.
Solid.
He's like, I know where your heart's at. I know that you guys believe the science. Yeah. This is not about that anymore. This is just about not dying.
That's awesome.
Finally, in August of 1940, while Nikolai was traveling in Ukraine to collect plant samples, he was approached by 4 men wearing dark suits and quietly taken away to the dreaded Lubyanka prison. Nikolai was accused of destroying Soviet agriculture, being a British spy, accepting the concepts of Western scientists and rejecting those of Soviet workers, most egregiously, denying those of Comrade Lysenko himself.
Jeez. Oh, jeez. Okay.
Over the next 11 months, he was interrogated on 400 separate occasions for a total of almost 2,000 hours.
I don't think we've even recorded 2,000 hours of this podcast.
Yeah, I don't know. It's quite a lot of time.
They just put this podcast on. They're like, you'll crack.
That's how they're torturing him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen to this man poorly explain what your life was about to a woman who just laughs at everything. And he's just like, no.
I won't laugh anymore.
Good. Anyway, apparently they had started this, unsurprisingly, they had started a file on him like 10 years earlier. It was like 6 or 7 binders long. Remember, he's like arguably one of the world's most popular scientists at this time. He knew everybody. He had a lot of friends outside of the Soviet Union, but within the Soviet Union, he didn't have a lot of allies. But even Stalin knew up until this time that he was like, it's probably not a good idea to kill him because it'll look really bad in front of everybody. But by 1940, he's just like, whatever, fine. It just doesn't matter anymore. And
reckless.
After all this interrogation and being in the prison, his sentence is concluded with a 5-minute sham trial that did not include lawyers, where he was sentenced to death by firing squad.
Whoa.
For being a traitor to the state.
He's like, I just wanted to collect seeds, you guys.
That's literally all he's like. That's all he's trying to do.
All I want is to have I want to catch them all. That's it. I want to catch them all. And you're going to kill me? Oh.
Listen, if we still did fun episode titles, that would have been Nikolai Vavilov, gotta catch them all.
Gotta catch them all, yeah.
I love it. But, thankfully, remember, he knew a lot of people and was well respected still.
Right.
So he wrote some appeals to like different people in like positions of government. Ultimately, they're all rejected. However, His death sentence was commuted to 20 years in prison,
Okay.
which is great, of course, because
Fun.
from there, he's sent to the gulag.
Oh, great. I forgot the
20
Russian
years in the
prisons are
gulag.
the worst.
Yeah, definitely going to make it out of that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Now, okay, so everyone who worked at the Seed Institute, whoever was left,
Right.
they're devastated, right? Because they've lost their visionary leader whose tireless efforts and dedication to this noble dream brought them all together at this one place.
Right.
But soon enough, their dedication to that dream would be tested even further. If you remember,
Okay.
Nikolai Vavilov had many admirers. And like most fan bases, you unfortunately cannot control who digs your vibe and who's into your shit.
Yep. I think that every day.
And in this case, a bunch of limp dick assholes known as the Nazis
No.
they were super into his ideas of genetics.
Uh-oh. Oh, no.
And this is my favorite part of the story. This is part of why I thought it would be such a fun tab to do in two parts.
Because you
The
love
Nazi
Nazis?
scientists, because I love Nazis, exactly. No, the Nazi scientists were the antithesis of Lysenko.
Yeah.
This is what's so interesting about it. They essentially argued that nurture and environment meant jack shit in determining the success of a plant.
Very German.
Genes alone determine their fate. Seeds, much like the Aryan race, will prevail simply because of their purity.
Yikes.
Meanwhile, Vavilov is like, dude, why is no one listening to me? That's not what any of the science says.
It's not what I said. But it's just the opposite of Lysenko. It's like, of course, they're going to take it the complete opposite way. You can read science however you want, which is so scary.
It's terrifying. And in 1941, the siege of Leningrad begins.
Oh, yeah.
In part because Nazis knew about Vavilov's work and his giant seed vault. Yeah.
That was part of the reason why they... Oh,
it's not like the main
I know,
reason,
but
like
they probably had like
knew
a
about
list
it.
of stuff. Oh, and let's check this off while we're at it.
Yeah, they knew about it, and it was something that they were interested in, and it was something that they wanted to acquire.
I'm the new
because to them it was like
Hitler says, I'm gonna catch them all. Yikes!
They wanted to get this seed collection, and they wanted to do their own dumbass, insane, incorrect experiments. Joseph Mengele was like, "Yeah, I want to feed women like potato seeds while I inject them with Miracle Grow because he really wanted like a new baby Groot or something." Like that's what that idiot wanted to do.
Most of what you just said was accurate, except for the Groot part.
Yeah. That's honestly like sort of along the lines of what he was doing.
No, that's what I mean. He was injecting people with like cleaner and like industrial chemicals to see just to see what would happen.
Just to see what would happen.
The twin experiments, he'll inject one twin with one thing.
Insane.
Absolutely absurd. By absurd, I mean the most horrific thing I've ever heard. It's
100%.
Awful.
So the Nazis are in on it. And again, ironically, complete opposite reason of Lysenko. Just it's just, listen, you guys, should have met somewhere in the middle. That's all you had to do.
Why can't we all just get along with the Nazis and the Russians? Just kiss and make up.
No, just listen to the scientists who have dedicated their lives to it.
Those nerds? They're so lame, though.
Not sexy, not cool. But anyway, if you want to know more about the siege of Leningrad and how that battle goes, just go turn on the History Channel or ask your boomer uncle or search Google or World War II or your dad.
And he'll whip out a documentary that's 7 hours long. Don't even worry.
Don't even worry. They'll have a lot of discussion about it. But this is not a Boners for War Battles podcast. Like, I'm not going to get into that. Round these parts, we like to keep things mid.
Boners for Wars is exactly what that genre is.
You only need to know one thing about this.
Okay.
The Nazi offensive revolved around what?
I don't know.
The main theme of this tab.
Seeds.
Starvation.
Oh, sorry. I was like, seeds? Right. They tried to
starvation.
Sorry, I'm on board now. They tried to starve the entire city out.
Yeah. It's just over and over. It's starvation, starvation. It keeps happening.
What was it, like 1 million people died of starvation or something?
Yep. That's right.
How long was it? Like 3 to 5 years? I can't remember.
I think it's about 3 years. It starts in January 41 and then goes to January 44.
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah, it's 3 years long.
That was rough.
And
I'd say, as if that's the word that describes
it. That was horrific.
That was a hard time in my life.
Reading about it was like so stressful to me.
I was stressed out about the siege of Leningrad.
So for the first few months of the siege, people got by eating tinned goods and stores of grains. And slowly but surely, supplies start to dwindle. Rationing went into effect, then strict rationing with adults limited to a quarter pound of bread per day. And then people start hunting dogs and cats. And then they're eventually reduced to eating lipstick, leather hats, and fur coats.
Leather hats can take you a while.
Yeah.
Leather, I mean. And fur
just
coats.
Matter. Yeah. Just something to digest.
Something organic.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's horrific.
That's
And
dark.
the only food in the entire city is, in fact, in the Seed Institute, in the seed vault, which is crazy.
Uh-oh.
However, it's filled with all these scientists who were like, okay, our main man Nikolai got kidnapped.
Right.
Then our own government starts calling all of our shit into question for being like class traitors for practicing actual science. And now, out of nowhere, this mass murdering meth head who can't even be bothered to grow like a complete mustache suddenly wants to take my seeds for incorrect science in the opposite direction?
Yes.
Absolutely not.
Yes. Yes. Those
Sorry,
are my
I'm
boys.
screaming.
You can yell.
They're like, eat shit, everybody. I mean, don't eat shit, because I shouldn't say
Hitler
that
should.
joke at this
I
point.
want Hitler.
Hitler
too.
should. Yes, Hitler. Yes. Nikolai's team sought to maintain and protect all of the crop plant biodiversity that had been collected.
Wow.
And as Hitler's troops marched on the facility, the scientists scrambled to move a large portion of their collection to a secret underground vault. Yeah. And at this point, there were 9 scientists left. And I'm going to slaughter all their names. I'm sorry, but I figured it should be cool to read all their names out. It's Georgy Cryer, Alexander Stukin, Dmitry Ivanov,
easy,
Lilia Rodina, G. Kovalevsky, Abraham Kamarez, A. Maligina, Olga Voskrensenskaya,
that is nuts,
and Yelena Kilp. I'm so sorry to everybody who is Russian. It's just a lot of names. I'm doing my best, but I thought it was important to at least know the 9 scientists that did this.
Yeah.
They all were like, as we would say, ride and die. They're all just like, no, we're here. We did this. We got this far. We're not going to give up now. Even as the entire world around us is starving to death and being like, basically like being forced to freeze.
That is horrible. Imagine being like, I could help people eat.
I mean, it's crazy, yeah. And since more advanced long-term storage had not yet been invented, samples needed to be periodically replanted and harvested in order to ensure that they remained fresh and viable. They did this at great risk, and yet they managed to carry it out, get this, secretly every year for the 3 years that the siege waged on. Yeah.
In secret, like the whole time. No one knew where they were, what they were doing.
No one knew what they were doing.
Kind of obsessed.
Badass.
I'm obsessed with these people. I love them.
And as you said, over 1 million people died from prolonged starvation at this period.
Horrible.
Including all 9 of the remaining scientists.
What?
Who starved to death, surrounded by edible plants to preserve the collection.
You're going to make me cry, dude.
Alexander Stukin, the peanut specialist, died at his desk with thousands of nuts uneaten.
Oh.
Like, basically, like, the lore goes that these people, like, literally had the seeds in their hands because they were doing the work. And they didn't eat any of it.
I'm kind of speechless right now. That's... Yeah.
Georgy Cryer, the medicinal plant expert, and Dmitry Ivanov, the rice collector, died soon after. Literally, they had rice, they had, like, potatoes and corn. They had literally every seed imaginable. And they were still growing them to make sure that it stayed alive. And they were like, this is not about us surviving. This is about this dream surviving and these plants surviving and these crops surviving, because this is more important than all of our lives combined.
Whoa. Sorry,
thousands
I don't know
and thousands
what to
of
say.
seeds. It's okay. It's okay to be speechless. It's incredible, honestly. Like,
yeah.
I think.
The lengths that someone can go for their ideals are their ideals,
but like in a good
beliefs.
way.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, well, you can see that in all of humanity, people going to the absolute worst places because of their ideals, but also like putting themselves second to the work. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I would just eat all those nuts. I would just
and honestly,
shovel them
like,
into my mouth.
Here's the thing, too, is like if the story had been and then they ate all the seeds to survive and then the thing was gone.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have faulted them.
No.
I would have been like, yeah, bro, you're about to die. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would have been mad. I think everybody would have just been like, insane conditions force you to do things, and it's tragic, but that's just how you do it. But they were just like, no. They're like, that's it. This is bigger than us.
What?
Wild, right?
Yeah. And so they all slowly, one after another, died.
Yep.
Who was the last one?
I don't know who the last person to die was, unfortunately.
I'd be interested to know.
Eventually, though, like you said, the siege ended, and the Nazis, thankfully, would go on to lose the war.
Yeah. Thankfully.
Thankfully, yeah, thank God. Unbeknownst to everyone at the Institute, in 1943, in a cruel twist of irony, the man who had dedicated his entire life to the eradication of famine, Nikolai Vavilov, starved to death in a Russian work prison.
Yeah, I knew when you said he got sent to the gulag, I was like, that guy's pretty much dead.
It's done.
He's dead.
But starved to death specifically, which is like, imagine. It's so, this is such a Russian story too. Like this is such like
seriously
filled with just like huge ironies and like poetic twists and like
heartbreaking,
deep sadness, like heartbreaking, but also
poetic
like
twist
extreme,
is exactly right.
But also like extreme like honor and like, a deep love of something and appreciation of something. It's just, it's very, and like set against like the most insane circumstances imaginable.
Insane.
It's an opera.
It really is. Holy cow.
Unfortunately, one of the people who didn't die was Lysenko.
Are you kidding me? That guy's still alive at this point?
This dickhead is still alive. He makes it through. He makes it through World War II, makes it through all that shit.
Oh. What did we do? Did we go get him and take him to the U.S. and make him our scientist like we love to do?
Oh, no, even worse. He continues to spread misinformation.
Are you... Oh, what?
This gets worse. Apparently, it even reached Mao and led to the Great Chinese Famine of 1959.
This guy?
Yeah, that's the guy.
Just.
Sucks.
Wow. One of my top hated people. I think he's up there with Hitler. I mean, Hitler's way up there, but like he's getting there.
I mean, I think I've read a bunch of the articles I was reading. They're like, this scientist has killed more people than anybody. And if you want to even call him a scientist.
This fraud.
He's responsible for more deaths than anybody. Yeah.
Liar has killed literally millions and millions of people.
Millions of people are responsible. So again, that was hard to not get into that whole tab, to go just be like, oh, what really happened in the Chinese famine? Because I was like, I got to stop this because we need to be more concise.
This is going to turn into like a Lysenko podcast and just all about him and how much we hate him.
It's crazy to think though, like how much his pseudoscience touched.
If Stalin hadn't have been like, you're in charge, literally a lot of people could be saved.
But just the Chinese famine, I was like, holy shit. It just went, I'm like, that spread like a virus, essentially. It's unbelievable. That's a whole thing to unpack.
Yeah, and how it relates to our current day. Yeah.
Yeah. Awful.
Yeah.
Ultimately, the only thing that really stopped Lysenko is the death of Stalin.
Because he was his guy. He was like the one.
That's his guy.
Putting him in front of everybody.
And even then, so I think Stalin dies in 54, if I'm not mistaken.
Sounds right.
Somewhere around there, 53, 55, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And even when Khrushchev took power, it would be another decade or so before all of the dissenting scientific voices were able to once and for all put a nail in the coffin of Lysenkoism.
It took 10 years.
It took like a few years, because even then it was like there's all these systems in place and they had to sort of deconstruct it and be like, okay, well, what is, it's a whole thing about what Khrushchev did once Stalin died. But Lysenkoism was not the first thing to fall. It took some time.
Yeah. And that's okay. Yeah.
So you talked about this earlier about like how the Soviets were like really into science and doing stuff the correct science way. Most of it seemed, I mean, he wasn't in charge of all science. He was like in charge of agriculture specifically, but like that kind of idea of like of ideology driving what science is started to get dismantled, and Lysenko was sort of the face of it. So once that sort of fell out of fashion, that's I think when the Soviets were like, we're gonna need to like really like look at real numbers. I mean, they were probably all thinking that. Yeah, or you could say that they probably already all thought that, but they were all afraid they were gonna get killed if they didn't.
Right.
Do it.
They just had to wait till the time was right to.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Anyway, eventually, Lysenko's dumbass died in 1976.
1976.
Yeah,
that dude
piece of
lived
shit lived for a long time. As far as I could tell, he didn't starve to death either.
What a bummer.
Yeah. Thankfully.
I'm like, that story messed me up. Go on. What were you going to say?
So I'm going to land the plane here. So thankfully, Nikolai Vavilov's contributions to the world have since been recognized.
Oh, good.
And even by 1979, it was reported that 80% of all the Soviet Union's cultivated areas were sown with varieties from Vavilov's collection.
Awesome. Okay.
Here in the United States, many of our crops today are crossbred with samples that he saved. Him and his team, I should say, saved.
What?
The data from Vavilov's 115 expeditions to 64 countries across Europe, Asia, the Middle East, North and South America is still used today to track how crops developed from wild plants and how they continue to change. And famously, as what started this tab off, his work is the cornerstone of the Svalbard Seed Vault.
It's so it's the corners? Like that was kind of what they.
I mean, it's not all of it, but it's like a significant chunk of it.
Yeah.
Although I think, if I remember correctly, the one in St. Petersburg now, I think is what Leningrad used to be.
Yeah.
It still holds the largest seed collection in the world. I'm pretty sure.
Even bigger than the seed bank.
I think so. I think the seed bank. I think that one is like a
just
crazy, like super apocalyptic. Yeah, exactly. It's the apocalypse. It's like the raid 4 of seeds, but I think the actual one that people still use and go is the one that's in Russia right now.
I know that you can actually. I've read some article that you can go get like a withdrawal from the seed bank even now, because like crops will get wiped out and stuff in certain areas and.
Yeah.
Wow.
I thought this was nice. They put them on a cool stamp.
Oh yay! He got a stamp,
which I liked.
There it is.
It's not super important. I mean, I didn't even send you anything.
Look at him.
We're talking about it. But anyway, I just thought it was a really interesting story about ideology versus science, and then how it escalates with like the Nazis coming in and thinking the complete opposite of what this other idiot. It's like two idiots fighting over something that's incorrect.
Both of them are incorrect.
Both of them are incorrect.
Like.
And the guy who like wanted to stop people from starving to death gets starved to death.
Yeah, he starves to death in a prison they put him in a workhouse.
And then all these scientists being like, I'm not going to eat these seeds that are literally in my hand for the good of science. Like, it's crazy.
Heroes.
Huge stakes. Heroes.
Actual heroes. I want to go read about each of those scientists. I want to know who they are.
Yeah, it's 9 of them, so it's gonna be a lot of tabs for you to open up.
I'll look. We're gonna have like 2 or 3 weeks where we're not recording.
That's true.
Wow.
Anyway, that's my tabs.
Oh, so I gotta like take a minute.
It's a bit heavy, that one.
Yeah, but it's also like, again, how have I never heard about this? Like, just
I don't know.
Because I've heard a lot about the siege of Leningrad, but I didn't know anything else like about that. I just, focused on the starvation, I guess. But holy cow, man.
I mean, it's sort of like what we were talking about earlier. I think. What did I say earlier? The War Boner podcast?
The War Boner podcasts, yeah.
The War Boner podcasts like to be fixated on the battle and like the guns and like the military generals. Strategy. They don't necessarily focus on like the stakes beyond just people's, like, to them it's just about who dies and who lives.
Human moments of like, we're going to sacrifice our lives to protect the science that has been denied.
Yeah, that's not what a bunch of like, boomers falling asleep on the couch like during Christmas.
They don't want to see that.
Channel. They don't care.
Also, I assume that like once we were then enemies with Russia, that kind of thing was suppressed anyway. And if it were even going to be taught at all in America, they don't want these Russian scientists to look like heroes.
Yeah, to undermine their accomplishments.
Kind of like how, did you know that Russia went to Venus?
Like first?
And took photos of Venus, the planet Venus in the 70s.
Oh, I didn't know that, no.
Yep. No, you did not know that. Nobody did.
Truthfully, I hadn't really thought about who had gone to Venus first.
I didn't know anyone would have gone to Venus. Anyway, stuff like that where it's just like, yeah, they probably just would have been swept under the rug anyway. But that's cool. Those people are awesome.
Yeah, I think it's, like I said, and I've had a fun week. Not fun listening to all the death, but I've been listening to a lot of like classical Russian music.
Ooh.
And just sort of getting into like all these like, epic violin waltzes and like strig. It's all so dramatic.
It's all very
it's
Russian.
Been fun. Yeah, it's all very Russian. Very beautiful music.
They have a fraught history, as does everyone.
But just fascinating to read. Just incredible stories, I should say. Like it's not fun because you're reading about real people. But as you read about them as stories, they're like, this is why they write some of the most incredible literature ever.
Right, exactly. It's like there's a different level of like suffering that they
Yeah.
You know, like it's like, oh, I know suffering, but Russian suffering is like, I don't know.
Extreme.
Anyway, that was amazing. Thank you. That was a great tab.
Thank you.
That
Thank you very much.
Excellent delivery. All of it. Love a good
Thank
two-parter.
you.
Love a good Kaveh two-parter. You're good. You got some good ones.
I think again, this is another one where I'm like, man, if I had my shit together, this would be a fun one to make. This would be a fun doc or a fun movie. Like you could see, it's literally like it's about these two guys who are like fighting, and then Stalin comes in, then Hitler comes in, and it ends in the third act with like this big battle, and then you've got all these scientists with the disciples who had to like starving to death. Like it's got all. It's a good movie.
And also like
that's part of.
Sorry, really quick. I can just the idea of a siege happening while 9 scientists are quietly dying. Yeah, like that. That contrast is so crazy to me. It's just like,
and just gardening as like an act of rebellion.
Rebellion,
like it takes these huge stakes and it makes it like this tiny little. And gardening and horticulture and botany is such like
it's gentle. It's gentle,
you know. It's just like talking to the plants every day, like watering it, making sure that it gets enough sunlight. Like it's sort of it becomes this metaphor for
quiet.
Like, you know, the spirit or like hope or whatever, right? It's like it's this tiny little thing. And agriculture is the thing that allowed us to exist as a species, and proliferate the way we did. It's like hugely
become
important.
What we are, like as humans. Yeah. Holy. Oof. Love it. Okay.
Good.
You ready?
All right. So what do you got for us, Hannah?
All right. So
I'm ready.
If you remember from last week, I talked about Phantom Islands. Not as you hoped for, Phantom of the Opera Islands. Sorry to disappoint you again. We're still not talking about Phantom of the Opera.
This entire season of this podcast has been one disappointment after another because all I wanted to do was talk about Phantom of the Opera every episode, and then you never did it.
Every Thursday you wake up, you're like, oh, I hope she talks about Phantom today.
Today's the day!
And then we close down the thing, and you just a single tear rolls down your face.
I yell at you for a good 40 minutes afterwards and be like, you better not do this again next week.
It's hard, you guys. It's a fraught relationship. No, it's kidding. Anyway, so we talked about Phantom of the Islands. No. That was a mistake. I did not mean to say that.
Dun, 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 dun. Phantom of the Island.
I pictured a dolphin singing that.
Interesting. A dolphin with like a cape and a hat and like the mask on half of its face.
That's a pretty good dolphin.
That was pretty good.
Holy cow.
Where did that come from? Did you not know that you could do that?
No.
Impressive.
Okay, no more.
Incredible work, though.
How are you?
Nicely done.
Why? Don't make me do this. Okay.
Don't blame me. I didn't do anything.
I have to blame everyone else. Stalin would want me to.
Your Western bourgeois non-dolphin sounds that you make.
All right. So, Phantom Islands were islands that were added to maps either by accident or on purpose, depending on what people wanted. And some of them really ended up messing up stuff for everybody, sometimes remaining on maps for hundreds of years. And I did a bunch of examples, and I did mention I was going to choose one of those to do an episode on this week.
Right.
I chose the Zeno map by the Zeno brothers.
Yes.
The one
Zeno Bros.
Yeah. So that was the one that the Zeno map was like just filled with Phantom Islands and
just all lies.
Claims and that's the thing. Not all lies, because every lie, good lies, are rooted in truth.
Rooted in truth. And sounds very I'm like there's like a good correlation between our tabs.
You have there is. It's weird, actually. Bunch of men arguing and getting mad at each other. Yeah.
Never happened in history.
No.
It's the first time I've heard about it.
No. I also learned that you can literally say anything on the internet and people will believe you.
Oh, yeah.
And I knew that, but I don't think I knew that. Like
What are you talking about? The entire premise of you being famous on the internet is because you said you came up with like the sleeping brain meme.
Oh,
we all know that's a lie.
Don't. That was Sarah Anderson. I stole it from her. The other day, the other day someone did the brain meme and they tagged Sarah in it. And I was like,
I laughed so hard when I saw that. I was just like, hey, Hannah, did you see this?
Love it. Dude, somebody on Blue Sky the other day, follow us all both on Blue Sky, was like, yay, the meme creator has entered the chat. And I was like, I might quit the entire thing right now.
Not as long as this podcast is on. You better stay on Blue
The
Sky.
meme creator? I didn't go to 10 years of meme school to be. I'm just kidding. Okay. I did go to almost 10 years of school before I dropped out. Doesn't matter. That's what, okay. So one of these examples was the Zeno map. So that is what I'm going to talk about today. This absurd story of these Italian brothers who supposedly discovered a bunch of new islands and reached the New World first before Columbus.
I'm sorry, but I cannot think of anything other than Mario.
I know.
There's like these two Italian brothers
getting up to
that
shenanigans.
discovered a bunch of new place. That's all. I'm sorry. I'm just going to have to say it because we're all thinking it.
Yes.
All I picture in my head is Mario and Luigi. I'm sorry if that's offensive. I don't mean it to be, but just the broad terms that you used sounded like
in
a
the
new
game,
game.
they're going to new places and exploring.
That's literally all they do is these two Italian brothers going to different islands and discovering new worlds.
100%. And when I've learned, like I said in a text to you last night, I'm now an expert on Venetian maritime exploring and map making.
Sweet. Okay.
Not really. I'm, master of none. But Italy at this time was, in the 1300s, was just exploding with exploration. And it was beginning of the age of exploration. So like Columbus and all those idiots. So it's very Italian. Sorry, I just hate Columbus. Okay, so here's some background on the Republic of Venice. So I didn't realize this until I played Civ 5 a few years ago. Again.
That Venice is in Italy?
That Venice is real. Did you know that it's real?
Wasn't just made up by Shakespeare for that one play that he did.
The Merchant of Venice? Well,
yes.
It was a merchant republic, like Shakespeare said, and Civ 5.
Like Sid Meier's said.
Sid Meier's is the Shakespeare of our generation. He's just not. He's not. So if you played Civ 5, you know how exhilarating and also frustrating it is to play as Enrico Dandolo in Venice, because you can only have one city. Unless you conquer everybody else, and then everyone gets mad at you, and then they attack you, and you only have one city. So it doesn't work. But when you play them right, it is fun, because you have a bunch of trade boats, and you get a bunch of money, you just buy your way into anything. Point is, that's not far from the truth, because it began as a trading post. The city of Venice became a trading post in the 8th century, and grew to like a solid financial and religious power over the next 1,000 years, before its fall in the 1790s to Napoleon, which I didn't know. And one of a collection of merchant republics located in the lagoon communities of what we now call Italy. So
the lagoon communities.
And there were multiple merchant city-states kind of around. What?
That's just where I picture the creature of the Black Lagoon, like going to retire after he's done like killing and eating everybody.
He learns
it's
Italian.
Like South Florida or something, where he's just like everyone's driving a Cadillac underwater or something. I don't know.
I want that.
He's like, you're going to bingo, getting the early bird special at 4:30 in the afternoon for dinner.
Everyone runs away screaming because he's the creature from the Black. Anyway, he's alone in a bingo.
Lagoon communities.
A lagoon. The creature of the Black Lagoon just sitting alone in a bingo hall is the saddest thing I've ever heard.
No, but there's other creatures from the Black. There's creatures from different lagoons.
All right. There's
they
like
all
a
go to retire.
Community for
That's what I'm saying.
cryptids?
It's the retirement community, or lagoon creatures specifically.
Cool. Anyway, so Venice.
You're like, are you finished? I want to talk more about my tab.
Venice ended up being in its prime, in its golden age, a hub of trade and science and art and religion and innovation and printing. Printing was a big thing. It made people printed more books there than anywhere else at the time.
Interesting.
Right. And they could easily send these literally anywhere because they had one of the best Venetian arsenal. Like they have a Venetian arsenal for ships. They have the best ships around, and they were.
I mean, this is essentially what makes New York in the United States, is that it becomes the hub of like where everybody comes in and like where everything goes from. That's interesting. So it's like the New York of its day.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot like New York, there was a huge merchant like wealth class of people who were kind of like old money that had been
the bankers and stuff.
The bankers, the merchants, and they would all like hire artists. That's why like a lot of these like artists that we see in art history textbooks have been like commissioned by these merchants, these Venetian merchants.
That's virgin merchants who sell stuff but have never lost their virginity.
Have never found the time to be right.
Yeah.
They're saving themselves.
Virgins.
For I don't know.
I don't know.
I can't.
I don't even know how to finish that thought.
I don't either.
That's too far.
So in the Golden Age, in the 1300s, it was a true powerhouse. And one of these wealthy and powerful patrician families, as they were called, was the Zeno family. And hundreds of years of these guys, they've been like generals and artists and, clergymen and in the government. They're very powerful and very rich. And I'll be focusing on a couple of them. So
Okay.
the first one I'm focusing on is Niccolo Zeno the Younger. This dude, I'm going to call him Nick from now on, and you'll see
Like
why.
baby brother, you're saying the younger? Is that what you meant? Or is that his last name, the younger?
They just call him the Younger because he is the one who writes about his great uncles, the Zeno brothers. So
Okay.
we're going to start in 1558, and Niccolo Zeno the Younger, he's a hydraulic engineer, first of all, and he's also like a highly regarded author and historian, and he's a senator. And so everyone's like, this guy's legit.
Okay. I see.
And he comes in and says, check this out. I am publishing this book, and it is full of letters from my two great uncles about their voyage to the North Atlantic. And this sent ripples. Everyone's like, whoa, a new map. This is awesome. Look at all those cool adventures. And it turns out, for the next 500 years, people would argue about these letters and this stupid map. Okay?
Again, all I'm picturing is the 1500s equivalent of an issue of Nintendo Power that has the maps that, like, where they all went.
It is. I watched some of the most absurd videos on YouTube, and now my algorithm thinks I'm a conspiracy theorist, and I'm almost exclusively getting Knights Templar stuff.
I'm gonna say this, truthfully, like, at any given moment on YouTube, you're
one
two
video.
clicks away. You're one or two away from being like radicalized.
Oh,
into something
absolutely.
or other. It's always lingering underneath there. It's just waiting to get you to go that
just
direction.
sitting there, and mine was this. So
Knights Templar, interesting.
Well,
okay, I mean, if
we'll
you're
end up-
historical, it makes sense that that would be the thing that it tries to gear you towards, push you towards.
no, it's because Knights Templar make a huge entrance into this story at some point.
But you're also doing like medieval Europe in
I
like
am.
the 13, 14, 1500s.
And
like,
those
I could
dorks
see.
were all over the place.
Yeah.
Those little white dresses wearing dorks with the little cross. We're going to protect the Holy Grail.
One of those necklaces with the T on them.
Yeah, the necklaces with the T on them. It's a cross. A cross from where?
Across from what?
A cross from what? Yeah. So these like...
Sorry, continue.
No, it's okay. I just know that like... I just went a little too deep. I went a little
Love
too
it.
deep. And
You're like, I'm here to tell you about the Knights of Templar.
I'm
the
going to tell
Templar.
you about how a arguably fake map from 500 years ago has fed the YouTube conspiracy theory algorithm.
Whoa.
Yeah, this goes all the way to the top and to the now. So, all right. I'm a Knight Templar. I don't know. Okay. So this book he publishes, right? I don't even know the name because it's literally 20 words long and I couldn't be bothered to say it. So purportedly this book told the true story of Nick's ancestors 200 years previously in the 1390s.
Okay.
Niccolo the Elder and Antonio Zeno, so the two brothers, and their adventures into the northern lands and their discovery of Greenland.
Nick and Tony.
Nick and Tony. Well, no, Nick and Tony and then Nick Jr. Oh!
Nick Jr.
Yeah.
Nick and Tony, Xenobros, but they're actually xenomorphs from the Alien franchise.
They are, and they still have a fun time exploring islands. Yeah.
You said they've been around for a long time and they're very good at what they do and they're very powerful. I mean, that is what a xenomorph is.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think that's right. I think you're right.
Nick and Tony and Nick Jr.
So Nick Jr. lived 200 years after, and he says, okay, everybody, you like this book? Well,
all I'm picturing is xenomorphs with Mario and Luigi hats on, the Nick Jr. kid,
Yeah,
and then
the
like
face.
Vavilov wearing like dressed up like Ash from Pokemon as like the thumbnail for this. This is the
Can you guys
stupidest
tell that we
episode.
came of age in the 90s?
Sorry, I'm completely derailing you.
That's
Continue.
the point. This is helping me. If you didn't derail me, I would get on an insane, endless tangent about disinformation, but also how I desperately want to believe it. Okay. So
that's how it all works.
I know.
It's the thing that you want to believe is what ends up spreading.
Yep. Okay. Chill. Let's take it down a little bit. Okay. Let's just bring it down. Okay. Ready?
No, keep it up.
No, I will. I'm
good.
I'm like frothing at the mouth with this. Yeah. So Nick Jr. claimed to have found the letters in his family's storeroom that his granduncles had written to their brother, Carlo. Carlo Zeno was famous for being this general that apparently saved Venice from Genoa, which is another Italian city-state. So Carlo's the famous brother, and then his two weaselly little other brothers are the ones who went on this journey. Despite some of the letters being damaged, Nick says he did his best to fill in the blanks and to interpret their discoveries as best he could, which led him to making the well-known Zeno map that he published with this book, which he added like way more islands than exist, but we'll get there.
You got to keep it interesting for people, you know?
You really do.
Yeah.
Because apparently sailing to France and then back again isn't enough, because that is the only true thing about any of this that we can actually confirm. So,
a Zeno's tale to France and back again.
To France and back again. Samwise Gamgee's there. Okay. Yeah. So here's the story that Nick Jr. published in this book. All right.
Okay.
I'm going to do my best to summarize this in a timely manner, since this could easily turn into a 4-parter. All right.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He begins the story with bragging about his family line, being like, this is where we come from, and this is how awesome we are. Look at all these generals and all this money. It takes like 2 full paragraphs of him just being like, the Zenos are great. And then he finally picks up the story in 1380 when his uncle, Nikolai Zeno, was a soldier in the Genoese War. And he retires from being a soldier and decides that he wants to travel the world, because he wants to learn about different languages and customs and people. You know, that whole thing that people do after, like, they leave the army or school or whatever. He goes on a gap year.
He wants to he's backpacking. He's literally backpacking across Europe.
And at the time, this sort of thing was also, like, kind of what these rich boys would do. And it earned you honor. And, you know, your homeland would be proud of you if you discovered stuff. And this was during the Golden Age. So the age of exploration was, like, full on the horizon, ramping up.
Nice.
So Uncle Nico from Riverside. Why is this whole episode Nicholas's, dude? Just realized there's so many Nicks.
Too many Nicks.
Uncle Nicolo sets out, and he sails and sails, and he wants to see England and Flanders, which is France. This is where the verifiable truth ends. History has a record of him arriving in France and then coming back 2 years later.
Okay.
But Nicky the younger is like, no, he kept going, and he kept going north.
Meaning Nick Jr.
Nick Jr., sorry.
Who's telling the story about his great-granduncle.
There's too many Nicholases. I'm sick of it.
Okay.
So when he gets closer to England, according to Nick Jr.
It's okay. We're going with it.
According to Nick Jr., he gets caught in a storm, and him and his crew get shipwrecked on an unfamiliar island. After days of like being thrown around and vomiting. And dude, I went and read the ship log of one of my ancestors, and literally their entire diary was like, threw up again today. It was.
Oh my God, are you about to publish a book and a fake map that's going to ruin the YouTube algorithm and radicalize people?
How'd you know?
I was going to say, the way that the story started off is like, I was like looking through boxes of a bunch of letters that my grandfather and uncles had written and blah, blah, blah. But I was like, Hannah, how much of this is actually your story here?
This is something that I would genuinely find in my family's storeroom. Yeah. And it would actually be real. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'm too lazy to do anything about all those binders. Oh, so they shipwreck on this island, right? And they're like, oh, I don't feel good. Oh no, our boat's wrecked. And they turn and they see all these natives running at them with spears and knives. And they fully just brace to die or whatever. And out of the blue comes this dude who comes in and saves them and says, I'll take you under my wing. And this guy looks European. And they're like, interesting. He also speaks Latin. I wonder what this guy's whole thing is. And he says, my name is Zichmini, and I am the Duke of Serrano, which is near Scotland. And this island is called Frieslanda. And I run this island now because I've been conquering islands ever since leaving Scottish area. And he talks about how he's like an amazing battle person, warrior.
No, I think amazing battle person.
Amazing battle person, and how he like beat the king.
That's how they use it on. That's what they talk about on the History Channel.
And the amazing battle person.
Yeah, General Patton was an amazing battle person. That's why they made a movie.
He's like, I am amazing.
Yeah.
He's like, for some reason, I pictured him just glamorous. What am I thinking?
I am amazing.
I am amazing. As he just shoots someone in the... Anyway, so this I'm unhinged, all right? Niccolo Zeno has destroyed me. This man has been dead for 500 years, and I hate him. Okay. I'm sweaty. I'm sweaty. We've entered sweat territory. Okay.
I'm listening, dude.
I'm barely
I'm
not.
listening.
I can't. I know you're listening. I just can't focus. Okay. So he says, I'm a duke from near Scotland, and here's all my stuff I did. I conquered islands, and I even beat the king of Norway to get Serrano, which was the island he was from or whatever, the duke.
Right.
And he was really good at all this stuff, and this bromance kind of begins between
interesting.
Nick and him, and because they're both like, oh, you're really talented, you're good at seafaring, and you're good at being a war person, and so they're kind of like buddies, you know. And at this point, Niccolo, look, when you're all alone on an island with just a bunch of men, who knows? Actually, there was a full city on that island. It was like a town and a civilization run by this guy Zishmini. So at this point, Niccolo writes back to his brother Tony, in Venice, and he's like, bro, you have got to come to this island. Me and some crazy warlord named Zishmini are living the life, and it is dope, and you got to come here, get a boat, get over here. And Antonio's like, absolutely, I'll be right there. The letters then go into detail about all these different nearby islands, including Iceland, and a bunch of fun side quests. Just island hopping, and just picture that's a bromance montage of these guys just like sailing. Best friends. What's that one song about best friends? Boys are back in town.
I'm doing sailing stuff.
You're doing sailing stuff. The boys are back in town are playing, and they are just landing on islands, just like what you're doing right now. Yep. Exactly. Looking out at laughing at the natives. The natives come at them with spears, and they're like, oh, you. Gilligan's Island is,
It's going to keep miming whatever you're saying. Yeah.
I can't wait for that. So one of these side quests is, because this part of the story, it's like paragraph after paragraph of these like exploits and side quests, and like I cannot get into them. But one of them is another shipwreck on an island called Grislanda, which definitely 100% does not exist in any scenario whatsoever. And it's uninhabited. And they're like, oh, that's kind of dope. And it's the
perfect companion to Phantom of the Island is Grislanda, is when everyone's like, I got clues electrifying.
They're dancing.
That's
just like
Griselandia, yeah.
It's Zishmini and Niccolo, and they're just flying away in a flying car.
Bunch of 50-year-old men pretending to be high schoolers.
Which one's going to change for who? Okay, well, Grislanda, straight up fake. And there's also other islands called Islanda, which they figured out is Iceland. So around 4 years after Uncle Niccolo landed on Frislanda and started hanging out with his bro, he decided to go back to Venice. Well, some say he went back to Venice. Some say he died on the island from it being too cold, and he was Italian, and he didn't want how cold it was. And he pretty much of exposure.
Died from Italian? Is that like what the official thing on the
death certificate was?
The death
too
certificate
Italian
says?
in a cold place. too Italian to survive in this climate.
Man, science has come a long way.
Yep. So we don't really know in the narrative, but Uncle Nico is gone. Isn't Uncle Nico from Napoleon Dynamite?
That's Uncle Rico, I thought.
You're right. Okay. Uncle Nico leaves the story, and
he goes back to Riverside.
And he sends us awesome tabs.
Sorry, I'm still laughing about died from being too Italian in a cold area.
He was just like, oh, it was so cold.
This is the worst podcast. It's so mid. Why do people listen to us? And then they laughed about sending me to Italian for 5 minutes in the show. I really think I want to buy the sweatshirt of this podcast and tell other people about it. What are we doing?
Are you having an existential crisis right now in the middle of my tab?
It's better than yawning.
I yawned 0 times this time.
I saw you. You almost
so
did.
Sweaty hot.
You were about.
I'm dying.
If you don't want me to laugh, stop being funny.
Good idea.
Just don't be funny.
Anyway, so the Italian dude dies of cold.
Nico goes back to Riverside.
Or he goes back to Riverside. I don't know. AKA Venice. So then Tony takes the stage as the main buddy of this Zishmini guy. And Tony's like, I can also do, ship stuff. And Zishmini's like, cool, you're my new bud. You're my new BFF. And you're going to help run my navy. Because remember, he's based in Frieslanda, which is like a whole metropolis, big city. Here begins the second and even more bizarre and outlandish leg of the Zeno Voyage. Antonio was given ships to keep exploring west because they're like, let's keep seeing what's over there. And it's around this time that apparently a group of fishermen return from a 26-year voyage in which they landed on an island somewhere and almost got eaten by the natives. Cannibals. And it's funny because the fisherman guy was like, they were really intelligent, and then they tried to eat us. And the only way they saved themselves from getting cannibalized was teaching these people how to fish. And
teach a man to fish, he won't cannibalize you.
He won't eat you.
Or give a man a fish, he'll eat you.
Teach a man to fish,
he won't be a cannibal.
He'll eat the fish.
He'll eat the fish, and then you.
So such a European mindset of being like, they're idiots, and they didn't know they could eat the fish in the ocean. We got to teach them. And he says that this land was called Bistata Land. Bistata Land. And that these cannibals ended up being like kind of cool. And the head fisherman was like, yeah, there's like a bunch of stuff there. And Zishmini is like pumped. And he's like, okay, Antonio, nice. Tony, we're going to go see what's up. And so like, let's bounce. Tony, let's bounce. They brought the OG fisherman with them. And then 3 days into the journey, he just dies. So they're like, well, now where do we go? Well, I guess we just keep trying to figure out where to go. And they keep going. And the events of this time were summarized shortly in a letter to Carlo, their other brother, with Tony saying he'd send the rest of the account later, which he did. But the account ended up being destroyed by Nick Jr. when he was a kid, conveniently.
Idiot.
When everyone's like, why isn't there more to this story? And Nick Jr. was like, when I was a kid, I accidentally destroyed it.
I ate a bunch of it. I went through a phase where I loved eating letters.
I loved eating family heirlooms.
Yeah, paper is delicious. I don't know. I wasn't getting enough iron. I was like, licking rocks and eating weird letters covered in lead.
Love lead. And so that was like one of the strikes against him. And he had literally all these letters apparently all got destroyed after he wrote this book. So
that sounds familiar.
It does, doesn't it? They sailed past some more made-up islands until they landed on one called Icaria, ruled by what turned out to be descendants of the kings of Scotland. So again, with the Scottish thing. They found an island called Estataland and Drogio, and they saw a bunch of sea creatures that were massive. And they ended up finding other tribes, and some of them were like half wild men, half human that lived in caves. Just a lot of journeying. Most notably, though, they discovered Greenland, which they named Trin.
Okay.
This would mean that they had reached the New World 100 years before Columbus. So this is the point of the story, is that they want that claim to fame. The Venetians do. That's why everyone was like, yeah, look at this. Screw Columbus. We were the first ones. And Zishmini actually liked it in Greenland, but everyone was like, oh, let's go home. So just a free-for-all. Free-for-all of fake island creations. A free-for-all of making up tribes. That's where the book ends, okay? Nick goes out and finishes it. And everyone loves it because of that claim that they found Greenland. And that whoever this warrior prince was helped them find Greenland, and they were the first Europeans in the New World, which is funny because Leif Erikson was before that.
I was going to say, it's the Vikings.
Yes. Yeah. So none of this is correct. Now here's the thing.
Also, it's not the New World. It's a world that existed.
It's been there.
New to you.
No one was there. We just
That's
took
like,
it.
I just found this new restaurant. It's really authentic, and it's in my. You're like, yeah,
It's
bro,
been
that's
here for
been there
700
for
years.
40 years.
Oh,
yeah.
So
You did not discover a new restaurant.
it's been here, and now you looked around and saw it. Here's the thing about the map. So after he's done writing this, he also does the map, and he kind of like full-on guesses where these islands are based on how the brothers described them in the letters. And
Okay.
so this map is wild. Like, I'm going to send you a picture of the
Yeah, I was
Zeno
gonna say, do you have
map.
an image of it? Adventures of the Zeno Brothers.
So you can see they Friesland is like, so Estland is Ireland, and then Norvegia is right next to Estland, which is Norway. And there's all these made-up islands all over.
Groenland,
Uh-huh.
Groenlandia,
Uh-huh.
Austro,
Yeah. So
Brogeo.
in real life, all of those islands, none of those exist, obviously. It's just Iceland and Greenland. And the Orkney Islands and the Shetlands. Anyway, that's the map. And besides being obviously copied from like 6 other maps at the time, the islands did look convincingly real because, again, he copied them, but he copied them from multiple different maps. And the stories felt legit because he based them in like, Scotland, or here's some names that kind of sound like the Isle of Orkney and the Isle of the Shetland Islands. And comparing it to other maps, you can tell he even has some of the same mistakes that they made. So it was one of those like copying the test from someone, but the person was wrong. And the Zeno map was then commonly used, despite all this, used as reference for other maps for the next 100 years.
That sounds right.
Yeah. So people were like, yeah, let's go look for these islands. Couldn't find them. And it's slowly over the next 100 years, they were like, none of these exist. Here's the issue. YouTube will have you believe that there's tons of evidence for this, right? There's a lot that goes against it too, because Nick Sr.'s career was well documented in the years he was supposed to have been traveling north. He was a well-known public official. He was a commander of a squadron of boats. He was a military governor to city-states in Greece. And he was convicted of embezzlement when he was supposedly hanging out in Friesland with this bearded warrior guy.
I didn't go to Frieslandia. I was too busy embezzling people. I ain't got time for that shit.
I was trying to embezzle Greek city-states.
Yeah.
So what? And I searched.
Oh, how times have changed. People trying to exploit the Greek city-state.
Come on. Lame. He was jailed for 5 whole years, lost everything, had to pay back all these people he embezzled in Greece.
What?
And in 1400, he was obviously ill, and he wrote his last will and testament, which was recorded in Venice by like an actual like official, and by 1403 he disappears from the records. So he probably died.
Probably died around there.
Totally.
Or went off the grid.
Right. Well, probably just died. Shamed, disgraced, stuff like that. So he has a paper trail of him being in Venice during that time. There was also many stories of pirates in the North Atlantic at the time.
Yeah.
That were very well known when Nick Jr. wrote this. And a lot of these stories, especially the Dishmini story, is very, very similar to certain pirate stories. Almost to like sometimes copying straight up.
Captain Jack Sparrow is basically what they're,
Yep. He was there. I don't like that movie.
You don't like the Pirates of the Caribbean movies?
The first one's fine.
The first one's great. It's really entertaining.
Almost every story that he talked about, all those little side quests, has some sort of well-known counterpart other places in Europe that he had access to. So he did this thing where he, collected all these stories and kind of pieced it all into this. And this guy named Nick Lucas, not Nick. They're not all named Nick. Fred Lucas wrote a book.
Fred A.
And this is the book I read half of. It's called The Annals of the Voyages of the Brothers Niccolò and Antonio Zeno in the North Atlantic about the end of the 14th century and the claim founded thereon to a Venetian discovery of America, a criticism and an indictment by Fred
It's a pretty good title. It tells you exactly what it's about.
And Lucas goes into this whole thing where he's like, oh yeah, this whole story is fiction. And it was built up by all these letters that were destroyed. And the account of the fisherman's journey actually to the cannibalistic island lines up perfectly with one that was told about a guy who went to Jamaica. And the same thing happened in 1511. And some of them even resemble these stories down to like the word. So this guy was like, no way.
Fan fiction, just copying and pasting.
Yes. Because he wanted to be able to say that they got to the New World first. So Here's where it gets truly insane, all right?
Okay.
Somewhere along the way, people started conflating Zishmini, that chieftain, with an actual historical figure named Henry Sinclair, the Duke of Orkney, which was a Scottish duke who, in the 1780s, was suggested by John Forster, a travel writer, to maybe actually be the real Zishmini, and that he was a Scottish lord, and that maybe Friesland had been swallowed up by an earthquake, and that's why it's not there anymore. He proposed that Henry Sinclair was Zishmini, because Zishmini apparently sounds like Sinclair, which...
Sure.
And all the evidence of Henry Sinclair had defeated the King of Norway at the same time that Zishmini had said he did, and that they had battled over Orkney, which was, I guess he conflated those two names. His theory was not popular until the 1840s, when this Danish admiral, Christian Zartmann, was like, what the hell is this? This is so stupid. And he just wrote this like scathing response where he was like, here's why this isn't true. Bam, bam, bam,
Twitter's
bam, bam.
red. Yeah.
And he's like, where'd you even get the Henry Sinclair thing from? Some random Scottish dude you're just saying is this chieftain? And it would have ended there, right? If not for Richard Henry Major. This man.
Hate this guy.
He single-handedly resurrected the Zeno text and map and wrote an entire 200-page book arguing that Henry Sinclair was not only Zishmini, but that he was the last remaining Templar from the Knights Templar, and that he was taking the Ark of the Covenant and the Holy Grail to the Americas to start the new Templar order there. Okay? And he needed the
Now
Zeno.
you're talking.
Now he needed the Zeno brothers. Sorry, I know you were about to fall asleep. Here's where it gets fun. He dug up records that didn't even match the story, and he changed things to fit this whole thing. He was like, "Oh, this isn't."
You're like, I'm gonna crack this wide open right now. Here's where it happens.
This dude, and he wrote this book, and it is one of the more popular books about this. And he changed things, straight up mistranslated, and added stuff to make it seem like this guy was actually Henry Sinclair, and that he and the Zeno brothers went to the New World together. And then it snowballed
To bring the Ark of the Covenant, you're saying, or the Holy Grail. That's what
people are saying now. So it started with that, and
it's in America.
It snowballed with dozens more writing about it, arguing for and against. Just whole sections of libraries are just arguments about these stupid islands.
This is Twitter before it became a thing online. But it used to be like it's forums, but in book form, not like online.
And literally, they just sound like YouTube comments, but like kind of fancier.
Mm-hmm. And 200 pages long.
I spent so long reading these retorts and arguments before I was like, none of this matters. None of this matters. None of this at all matters. Henry?
You're having a healthy debate and discussion.
Instead they're like, you idiot. How would you ever think the Knights Templar actually died? There's no proof of them actually being wiped out. So this was the beginning of what led to the thought that the Holy Grail is buried in Boston, Massachusetts. I don't know if you knew that, but Henry Sinclair, who also was friends with the Zeno brothers, straight up went to America and went down to Boston and buried it there.
Why Boston?
I don't know. And people straight up believe that Henry Sinclair and this stupid idiot. Sorry, okay, I'm insane.
Why are you holding back? Just keep going.
Because this stupid, what's his bucket major? This stupid idiot would not stop. He was like, no, he was like the worst person to argue with. He wouldn't stop. And so now there's all these books arguing for this. And he speaks in such a way that makes it sound so awesome. And yeah, it sounds awesome that Scotland was the first people in North America instead of Columbus. And that they mixed with this tribe called the Micmac tribe, whose flag is almost identical to the Templar flag, which...
Micmac,
it's a whole thing. They're in Canada. And as well as this rock near the tribe that has Templar carvings and a grave that had like the carving of a medieval knight on it with a sword and like a crest.
Sounds like the next Indiana Jones, yeah.
Except those were both carved in the 1800s, and they've proved that. Yeah. But to this day, there's endless videos about this grave, and where's the stupid grail in Boston? It was all debunked. Other proof is that they found a European canon and artifacts, which could have been placed later. Also, the Sinclair family chapel, Roslyn Chapel, had cord motifs in it, and they're like, that didn't exist until the New World. So they must have gotten that from the New World. They could easily be argued as something else, not corn motifs. Apparently, someone also found a Templar labyrinth in Nova Scotia. They didn't. And then they were like, oh, Oak Island. Have you ever read about the Treasure of Oak Island?
No.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Not going to do it. Wiped from my memory.
I went insane. I was like, this
Oak
is an
Island?
Interesting story.
More like Woke Island.
And
no
then,
one cares.
And then the Templar thing came in. And it peeves me. Because the Templar thing, they were a bunch of dickhead assassins who were actually terrorists. And they were wiped out for a good reason. And they do not exist anymore.
Ooh,
that is the
take.
end. I don't know why I'm so upset about this. But I watched too many YouTube videos of dummies being like, yeah, here's the rock, and yeah, our tribe has stories about this guy, and yeah, literally saying whatever they want. Anyway, the Zeno brothers map was at best a mistake, and at worst a full fabrication.
So did people end up getting like hurt or anything from it, or is it just like a dumbass nonsense like YouTube like dumb rap battle and books thing?
Yeah, not that I know of. But it did. That's why it's kind of like the silly little thing. Like if someone had gone out and died, that was different. There's other ones that did that. This was just this bizarro, like this guy who was well respected went on and made up this whole story, or at least misinterpreted his brother's letters. That's my tab.
I mean, maybe it would have been. Can't you imagine your brother sending you back letters and you're like, this is dumb. I'm just going to make up a bunch of stuff to embarrass him because he's my sibling.
Yep.
And doing it to bother him.
Yeah. Or straight up lying because you took the family fortune and you went off somewhere.
Yeah.
And you didn't find anything. So what better thing to do than
ruin
be like,
his reputation.
By the way, and yeah, easy. So either Nick Jr. was like, found these letters and they were fake and they were lies. And he was like, oh, this is jackpot. Or Nick Jr. never found the letters and just made all of this up and kind of fit it into his own narrative and his own family narrative. And especially because that brother was dishonored, like the one who got embezzled. Like he's
trying to whitewash his reputation to just be like he wasn't somebody who was like suffered from embezzlement.
He was a
like,
hero.
Died at sea. He was a hero, actually.
Yeah.
You people don't even know.
Yeah. So there's many reasons why someone who could be respected.
Retconning his family's history.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think the most harmless answer is that he was like fooled by his own brother's letters. And hey, maybe, but he was extremely smart, extremely intelligent, and he was also an author and an engineer. And I don't think he could have... Then again, who knows? He could have just believed anything. So that's the Zeno brothers and their map and how the Knights Templar has now entered America. So jot that down.
Jot that down. You gonna be all right?
Yeah, I watched too many videos. I was just like, you dumb idiots. And one guy, sorry, really quick, one guy was like, this is true. This is true. There is proof. And like, it's like so stupid, but if it was something more serious, how terrifying would that be? All the comments are like, you speak the truth. Thank you for actually telling us the truth. My ancestors were descended from Henry Sinclair in Boston, and you know, just stuff like that where it's like brain rot.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm coming down. I'm trying not to feel self-conscious that I just screamed about a conspiracy from 500 years ago. So
listen, this is going to do numbers for our channel. Don't worry.
You think?
'Cause now you know the real truth, which is on our channel, which you should subscribe to.
You
None
guys
of these
should
other
just go
bunk-ass
dig.
videos.
Go dig in Boston. Just go dig. Just dig and dig. You'll find it. It certainly existed. Cool. Are we going to do a countdown? Did I exhaust you?
No, I'm just letting you go. I just felt like
I need you to stop me.
I was going to let you. Okay.
I need to move on.
Okay, moving on. Thank you for that tab. That was really... That was the most deranged Mario Brothers plot I've ever heard in my entire life. When I
die after an embezzlement charge, you better retcon my reputation.
I'm just going to be like, listen, she discovered digging. She was the first person to dig to the center of the earth.
She said hi to all the people down there.
She brought the cup of Christ. What was it? Sorry, the Holy Grail.
Holy
with her,
Grail. It's pretty much
all the
cup
way
of
down.
Christ.
It's the cup of Christ. She brought it to the New World, which is the inside of the earth.
The inside, yeah. And then she turned it
dug
all
all the way
inside out,
down.
and now we're in the middle of the earth.
She prolapsed the earth, is what she did.
Hannah Hillam, prolapser of earth. Prolapser supreme.
Her and her best friend, Nick Jr.
I keep
So how do we
picturing
prolapse
Face.
these tabs?
Remember Face? They're like, hey guys.
Face?
Yeah, that was a Nick Jr. character. It was like the
Oh,
scream.
I'm sorry. Yes. Cool. Thank you for that.
Great.
How do you want to destroy our tabs this week?
Let's shipwreck them. I don't know or
Yeah, like shipwreck. I don't know if that's too complicated for
crashing
sound
into
effects.
some rock.
Just crashing into rocks, and then Bushnizi, what was his name?
Zishmini.
Zishmini coming in and making you like a cute, handsome, beautiful battle person. What did you call him?
He's a good battle person.
A battle boy.
Zishmini the battle boy. Versus Seed Boys. This is gonna make for a weird
Seed Boys versus Battle Boys. Who will win?
Kumatab right here. Am I putting Zishmini in? No, I just do the Zeno
Zishmini.
brothers. Okay.
Yeah, the Zeno Bros. Anyway, okay. Why don't you go ahead and count us
All
down?
right. I have literally like 20 tabs open. So
Yeah, I have a lot of tabs open from my readings as well. I'm stressed to close them because there was so much, and I'm like, I hope I didn't forget anything.
there was so much more I wanted to talk about with the Knights Templar, but I didn't want to give it any more. You can go watch the videos. You can find out all about it. It's anyway. Okay.
Or don't.
Or don't. And just know
because
that
you were saying that they're all wrong.
humans are dumb and they make up stuff, and it's mostly just fun.
Yeah.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Crash that right into the rocks.
Woo!
Oh, closing so
Thank
many.
God. Yeah, me too. Dear Lord.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to listener emails.
Yes.
Email number 1 is from friend of the podcast,
Oh,
Josie.
you're Josie?
My Josie. Sorry, guys. I just learned something so crazy I have to bother you with it because I don't know what else to do with this info.
I like that we're like the first people she thought of. It's like, I don't know who
She's
to tell.
like, these idiots will love it. The earliest representation of Christ on the crucifix ever
Oh.
found so far in the entire world is some scratched graffiti in the emperor's home in Rome on the Palatine Hill.
What?
It was scratched there by a slave in the slave's quarters. But it's not just of Jesus on the cross. He has a donkey head, and the caption reads, Alexianos, worship your God. It's presumably a joke on an early Christian, as non-Christians used to call Jesus donkey-headed, attaching a picture. And I'm sending it to you right now.
I got donkey brains. What does Frank say when he
I don't remember.
goes to that psychiatric ward? He got diagnosed with donkey brains.
Is that the one where like Rob Thomas from
yeah.
whatever
one of
is
them.
in it, and Sinbad, I think is the other person.
Oh, Sinbad and
Anyway.
No, that's a different one. Oh, whoa. Oh, yeah. That's a donkey-headed Christ on the cross. There's no way around that.
Do you remember that
Holy
meme
cow.
of that guy? It's an inappropriate meme, but it's that drawing of the guy getting head where he's like, "Damn, shorty, okay."
No.
You never seen that one? Okay. Well, that's what the drawing looks like, just for anybody who's listening who can't see it.
Oh, good. Crazy. That's the first depiction of Christ.
Allegedly, yeah.
Wow.
According to Josie. Love Josie. No, I just wanted to give Josie a shout out. She's moving away. It's gonna be hard with her
Aw,
not around.
bummer.
But I wanted to wish her well. I wanted to keep it Josie by letting everybody know about her cool, weird Roman obsession and thank her again for coming on the show.
Yes.
And wanted to give her time with her letter. Anyway, that's Josie's
I'm
letter.
glad she came on to talk about Rome because I think that is a weird blind spot we both have. Like,
It's not a blind spot. I deliberately don't do
I
it.
forgot.
If I'm in a seed vault and they're like, you have to read about Rome to survive, I'm dying. That's what's happening.
Whoa.
Staying till the very end.
What would I die? What would I die if I?
Oh,
No,
it's,
I'd
it's
just
literally
eat
no.
the
The way
seeds.
that you would die is if someone told you, "Hey, you should watch this," and you'd be like, "Absolutely not," and then you would die.
There's something
It's like,
wrong
"Hey,
with
Hannah,
me.
here's a great book that I think you'd really enjoy because I know your sensibility." Absolutely, just dead.
I've been this way my whole life. I used to get tricked into watching things by my friends.
Yep.
They'd be like, we're hanging out, and then we'd end up at a movie theater, and I'd be like, wow,
Yep.
you guys are
It's
evil.
great.
The ones who are listening
Evil
to
for
this.
wanting to share a movie with you.
And here's the thing. I know in my heart that they're right. I know I'm going to like it. I know
And
it's
you
good.
still-
There's
then you're still
something
mad at
wrong
us.
with me. I don't know what it is, but if someone tells me to do something, I will not do it. I won't do it.
Hey, Hannah, why don't you not read the next listener email?
Okay. Hi, tab closers. This is Eve from Maryland. Okay, don't use reverse psychology on me, you turd. I know exactly what you're doing.
I'm not going to.
Hi, tab closers. This is Eve from Maryland. And I'm the one who sent the tab about the crazy spider nest. Do you remember that one?
Oh, that one was fun.
Today my tab is also about bugs. But I swear this is a coincidence and I'm not a crazy bug person. Sure, Eve. And it is a link to an article about bees. And it says, apparently bees enjoy...
Bees?
Bees?
Beads? Bees.
Beads.
Beads. It's like the fifth Arrested Development quote this episode.
That exchange is so good. And then later...
Bees?
Later, he's like in the jail and he's like trying to start his bee business or whatever. Like, no bees in the jail. Anyway. Okay. Apparently...
Bees. Yes.
Bees? Apparently bees enjoy playing with balls just for fun. Don't. Don't.
I said nothing.
That is...
But I did have an image of tanukis with bees
just
together in the same
swarming.
image.
Just on their... Yeah.
Just a beekeeper tanuki covered in balls.
Just balls. Wait. Bees... Okay. I'm not going to follow that train. This is the most adorable thing I've ever heard. They will delay getting food to play with the balls and will choose to go into rooms with those dope toys. Happy tabbing.
Nice.
And I went and read it, and it's true. Like, these bees will choose playing over other things that would be helpful for survival. So they see a
my
ball,
goodness.
and they're like, oh, yeah, who cares about food or whatever? Let's go play.
Like a bunch of toddlers.
Yep. And so according to the researchers, individual bees rolled balls between 1 and 117 times over the course of the experiment. And the repeated behavior suggested ball rolling was rewarding.
Anyway, if you too have a listener email that you'd like to submit, please send one to 500opentabs@gmail.com and let us know what you found out that was interesting. Send us the link and let us know where you're from. Or additionally, you can also do a voice memo that we can play on the show. We'd actually love to get more of those if possible.
Yes.
Remember, it's 500opentabs, 500opentabs@gmail.com.
Yes.
Additionally, Hannah, tell them where they could find us.
You can find us at 500 Open Tabs on Instagram and Blue Sky.
Blue Sky.
We now have a Blue Sky. Guys, get on Blue Sky. It's fun.
It's popping.
It feels good.
We're not on Twitter anymore. Twitter
No.
just turned into a weird spam bot something or other.
It's
and
just
no one was engaging.
an echo chamber of bots.
Yeah.
And YouTube.
Did I tell you I deleted all my tweets?
That's insane.
I did it. I went through the
Was
process.
it hard to let go?
No, I don't care about anything. Nothing matters.
Oh,
I'm
cool.
like, this is not
Okay.
important.
Cool.
I feel like maybe in like a month I might be like, oh, why did I do that? But I was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I didn't close the account because you're supposed to keep it open just so somebody can't take your identity or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's all gone.
I'm impressed.
I will not remember probably in like a month. I'll
That's the
forget that
thing,
I was
yeah.
even on Twitter.
That's the thing. Out of sight,
Yeah.
out of mind.
Exactly. And I'm not really interested in being part of a giant psyop. So no thanks.
Me neither. You can follow us on Patreon where I post a bunch of extras. And if you've listened to this episode, just know that there's a bunch of extras that's going to be on there of me just yelling. So if you want to hear more about the Knights Templar and I don't know what else we talked about.
You didn't get that much into the Knights Templar as
I
much
didn't.
as you're self-conscious about it, but it's
I
not like you
kept
talk that much
it
about
in because I was like, this could go off the rails. And you can also follow us on there, Patreon, and then get on the Discord. It's always alive and having fun. Did you already say the Discord?
No, sign up for the Discord. You're right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Discord. All these links are on our Instagram, and you can follow me
And in the show notes.
and the show notes. You can follow me at Hannah Hillam on everything. I just joined Blue Sky, and where can they follow you?
I'm also Commentarian on Blue Sky and PermaFriends on Instagram. Anyway, anything else you want to talk about?
No.
No. Thank you guys again for listening. We only got a couple more episodes left before the end of our season. It's very exciting. The last
One more
couple
regular
are going
one,
to be fun.
and then it's Kumatab. And I have been working on Kumatab for a couple months, and it is going to be insane. So,
It's going to be Kumataberific.
yeah.
Kumatabulous.
Kumatabulous. Anyway,
In honor of Josie, Keep it Josie. Josie.
Keep it Josie. Josie.
Keep it Josie. Josie.
I don't even know what to say
Fight
to
it
that.
out.
I'm dead.
way.
Whatever.
Done.
I'm dead.
Done.
in
Just
here.
end the episode.
Goodbye.
It's done. Goodbye.
Goodbye. I don't know what you want to say. Goodbye.